today, we're going to talk about some interesting things, and I want to spend some time diving into that. And, for those of you that don't know, like Luke said, my name is Rohatgi. I'm the Vice President and Global Head of Design at BP. And I spent the last 25 years of my career in and out of all sorts kind of different types of design in B2C, B2B, B2B2C, agency side, brand side, and everything in between. And from television and film, early on won an International Film Award for a film I wrote and produced, and had the privilege of launching social television in the United States. We partnered with people like Mark Burnett, who created Survivor and The Voice and some of those shows to bring interactive TV to the world. And some of the things that we did as it related to social and interaction and engagement ended up going into some apps and things that we were pioneering on, and some of that ended up in an app called Vine. So if any of you remember that app, raise your hand if you remember Vine. And then for those that don't, it was a precursor to TikTok, I think, if you will. And it was a cool app, right? And so we had worked with all sorts of kind of companies and brands and stuff. And so it's interesting to see how that evolved over time. And so as I traversed through my career, leading design in different companies and different global organizations, including even design at agency side and also even at companies like Motorola, I found myself that all of these companies had the same challenge. How do you connect and engage people? How do you connect with humans? And how do you really make their lives easier, better with your products? And so BP reached out to me at the end of 2019, and they said, it was on LinkedIn, of all things, and they said, hey, we'd love to talk to you about what you're doing. And we'd love for you to come over here and help us do something different. We're going through a digital transformation. And they were showing me all this cool technology. They had AI already. They had AR, VR, MR, XR, robotic dogs, which you might see today. One of our dogs from Boston Dynamics. Fleets of drones, autonomous vehicles. And I thought it was great. And I said, well, as I was trying to figure out what do they need me for, right? What do they need you for from design? I realized that it was the very question I asked them. So what are you doing to put humans at the center of all this? And how are you designing in a human-centric way? And they said, that's what we need help with. And so I joined BP at the beginning of 2020 in February. And I realized then that I ended up becoming the first designer that we know of, perm, badge, titled, and design leader in 100-plus year history in our company. When I got there were hundreds of designers, and there were thousands of designs, but they were all through third parties, great partners, all sorts of kind of consultancies and agencies. And with all those hundreds of designers and thousands of designs, I realized that nobody was doing design, big design, one design. And for us, BP design. And what did that mean to us, right? What did it mean to me? My second week, when I stepped into London at the beginning of 2020, this is pre-COVID, our CEO at the time stood on the stage of the world and said that we were going to march toward net zero to reimagine energy. And we had 10 aims, and 5 aims to help our company get there, and 5 aims to help the world get there. And since then, we've had more aims added. And I remember going back to my hotel room that night and feeling this incredible, overwhelming sense of purpose and destiny, and being in the right place at the right time for the right reasons in a long time, that kind of feeling, And even though I felt like I've done some really cool things across my journey in design, like many of you, actually all of you, right, are probably part of something really special, it really hit home for me. And I remember just feeling like this incredible sense of a mission to do something different in the world. And I remember, just like back in the day when I was figuring out how do we combine TV with social and call it social television, I thought, how can we combine design and sustainability and call it sustainable design? But as an outsider coming into a company like this, how can we also be the change on the inside? How can we make the difference, right? How can we represent the design community? How can I represent you? And all the things that we've learned, all the incredible things that we've done in design thinking to all the innovation and the things that we put out and all the apps, how can I represent design and BP? And then how can you be a part of that? And so we started realizing that getting to a net zero future requires us to redesign everything, reinvent our products, rethink innovation, reshape operations, and reimagine how people interact with energy. And one of the things about that that I found that was quite interesting is that we had already been doing amazing things in that area. And now we're doing some really incredible things that we get to be a part of, that I get to be a part of. I was just at MIT as in an invite-only group of the CXO Sustainability Roundtable with people that would maybe never had invited a company like ours to that, but here we are talking about the future of sustainability along with the dual climate challenge of how do we get the world to have energy, because everybody needs it, needs more of it, but how do we decarbonize that and make that stable for the world? And so there's a trilemma. How to have sustainable, reliable, secure energy in the world, and affordable. And they were trying to solve that at MIT, and I happened to get a chance to go spend some time with them. And there was a synergy that we found, or I found there, that everybody was talking about this in a way that brought all sorts of kind of companies together. 9 students from 9 universities and people from 25 different major companies to see if they can help solve this challenge. And we're partnered with all sorts of kind of groups. We just announced our partnership with Tesla, which is one of the amazing partnerships that we have with an investment across our charging across the United States, and other groups, whether it's been Amazon or Uber that you've seen in the press. It's all for a purpose of how we get to a sustainable future. But I started thinking, what does that mean for design? And what does that mean for us in the way that we design? And even though our purpose is to reimagine energy for people and planet, our team has to be able to connect to that and figure out how can they actually design in a way that makes a difference in the world. Because this isn't about just designing for our generation. This is about redesigning things for the generations to come when we're no longer here. This is about designing for destiny, and this is about designing the future. And we need every single group to get there. We need every single designer to get there. We need every single company. We really can't do this alone. And right now, we have an amazing team of some of our designers during Product Design Week doing a hackathon with some of our friends at Frog, Capgemini, and some others in their corner shop, which is a retail innovation experience right here in London. And they're working on some of the future of retail innovation along with sustainability and AI right here in London, along with other folks in New York, which is pretty cool. So we're going to actually talk about that at the end of the week, and we'll announce who the winners, and maybe we'll get a chance to open this up for you all next year, and we can all do this together and see if we can make a difference together, which I think could be really cool. So our design group is called BPHXD. It's Human Experience Design. And we like to say that we harness human experience design to reimagine energy for people and planet. So what is human experience design? Brian Pagan said that human experience design considers the needs of users, customers, active and passive stakeholders. It's UX plus CX plus EX. Because you can't have an amazing customer experience if you don't have an incredible user experience. You can't have an incredible user experience if you don't have a real, authentic, and really caring employee experience. And so people ask me, so why are you going to call it HX in BP? They may not even know what UX is. And I said, we'll teach them. They will learn. We will all learn this together, right? Because it's bigger than just UX. It's bigger than just CX. It's the full human experience. And what's interesting about that is that we grew from that. And being the first designer and design leader, we started recruiting people and internally and externally. And now we are looking after over 200,000 plus interfaces across the globe. There's maybe about 5,800 to 6,000 apps that we know of. And our design system is probably now one of the largest in the world. Gerald Miller joined us on his way to Facebook. He decided to come here instead. And the design system he's built has about 75,000 components in it. So if you take Salesforce Lightning, IBM Carbon, and Google Material Design, combine those together, we've eclipsed it several times. But not because we wanted to on purpose, because we knew that we had to reach so many parts of our business and our organization. In BP, we're reaching out to B2B, B2C, B2G, which is business to governments, sometimes helping whole cities become sustainable or smart. And it's not just B2B, B2C, and B2G, but it's also B2E, the whole enterprise estate. And then I say B2Me, which is the employee experience. And we're designing across all of those areas, which is really exciting, but it's really hard to do. And we have an incredible amount of designers that have come to do that. There was a period of time when we onboarded over 1,400 designers to our design system alone. And one of our our head of software engineering just joined our company, and he was really blown away. He came from Google, and he couldn't believe what we had already done and achieved with our design system, and even in a company like ours, but even in the world, which is super exciting. So it's designing in a way for digital circularity, designing in a way to use our design system to hopefully become more sustainable in the way we design. But the question I have, though, when we think about what we're doing with this and with AI and all this stuff that we're talking about in these conferences, is that human experience design side. Like, what actually makes us human? And so I spent some time over the last several years, even before, this kind of has now become super popular to talk about. I remember I was just, really intrigued by this question, and I started to do some research. And some of this comes from that research, so it's not all mine here, but what I found was there was 4 C's that make us human, and that separate us from machines or robots or whatever. And we're doing all sorts of kind of cool stuff with robots and things. Part of that was also with MIT. And we're designing some interesting interactions with the way that we do work and augment. As a matter of fact, you might have seen us or myself in a bit in Wired magazine, where we were working on the future of research with AI. And Sully, who you may have heard on Monday, who's our head of research, was talking about how we leveraged synthetic humans with some of our partners on how we can really use synthetic humans and AI to research on the future of smart cities so that we can augment our human abilities and our capabilities. But what makes us human? So first, we're at the bottom, interestingly enough, I want to start there. We're compassionate, right? We have empathy. Humans are driven by need, but they're at their core, they're fueled by compassion, right? We're creative. We're imaginative. Imagination is something that's still ours. No matter how amazing DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and Midjourney can be, we still have an imagination. We're curious, and we're innately curious. We desire to explore, and we're full of wonder. Humans are full of wonder, and that's what makes us so special. That's what makes us so different. And then we're cultural. Humans communicate in ways through oral, written language, ideas, knowledge, and practices. And that culture makes them unique. It makes us unique. And it's through plays, it's through arts, it's through music, rituals, concerts, collaboration, community. And something I found over several weekends ago in the middle of travel and stuff, I remember I stopped for a moment and got a chance with the family and some friends to go to a children's play. And it was interesting because we all sat there just like you, watching these children on stage. And they were singing songs, and they were dancing, and they had all their costumes, but they were also tripping over the tail of the costume, and they were off tune, off key. They missed a word here and there, and everybody still cheered. And actually, we cheered more. And actually, we applauded even through all the difficult moments. And we covered them, and we laughed, and we had joy, not at their expense, but together as a community. And it was really special. And I was like, wow, this is really, really, really human. And I thought, man, how can we spend more time watching this and doing this, right? And I found myself realizing that, that we need to make time for this even more. And probably one of the things that AI may not always get a chance to do or touch until a little bit later is, even though they may change our movies, they may give us digital actors and all these things, they may not be able to take our stage away from us for a while, right? Or augment us, right? Not that they would replace people. But one of the things I remember doing over the weekend also wasn't just hanging out with or seeing Jordan from Rizzle Kicks, but it was watching the Back to the Future musical here in London. Anybody seen that? Anybody seen Back to the Future? You know that movie? Right? There's the Doc Brown and Marty McFly. And Doc Brown, a couple of my favorite sayings. He's like, 1.21 gigawatts, right? He's like, great Scott! Back to the future, Marty! Right? These amazing sayings, right? He asks him, Doc, where's the road? Marty, roads, where we're going, we don't need roads, right? And it was amazing to see this play, and it was out there, and the stages and the sets and the human innovation and the creativity, and I was so blown away by it. And when he said that about, this is the future, Marty, right? And I thought, wow, and where we're going, there is no roads. And I thought, wow, but what about design? Where have we been, and what road have we been on? Because I believe that UX has actually been, through history, one of the key change agents for what we have today. And UX has been there throughout history. And I believe it's still going to stay in the future. So I put together a timeline. I know this is a lot, so don't freak out. But what I did was, I was just researching and I said, okay, well, let's see what the timeline of UX is. And so I laid that down and I said, well, and then let's add our tools, some of our tools that we all use. And I thought, well, let me just add the timeline of AI on top of that too, and see what this looks like. And so on the left, in 4000 BC, sometimes they attribute to feng shui and the importance of space at the beginning of UX. And then 500 BC, you have ancient Greeks with the study of ergonomics. And then 1400s came along and the Gutenberg press. And people were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't have a printing press. We still write all of our books. And for a long time, people still wrote books and rejected the Gutenberg press. And then in the 1600s, the mechanical calculating machine was created by Pascal. And then in early 1900s, Taylorism started in the Industrial Revolution, which was interesting because there was a gentleman named Ned Ludd who led this revolution against the machines. They called them Luddites. And those that are today that are maybe against technology, they call them the Neo-Luddites, right? And over time, though, in 1936, that didn't stop innovation and progress. In 1936, Alan Turing and the team invented the first computer. And then in the 1940s, Toyota began with the human input of UX. I'm going to skip over just a little bit and show you that there was Disney, and then the principles of design thinking emerged in the 70s. And then the start of that first AI winter, you can read about that. Then the second AI winter. In 1974-75, Microsoft started, and Wozniak created the first Apple computer. That's interesting. Same year, first Apple computer, Microsoft. We'll come back to that. 1980s, Apple Macintosh is created and gets bigger, and then design thinking was compared to architecture and it gets bigger. Alan Kay and Douglas Engelbart created the first graphical user interface at Xerox, then Apple. And then, in 1991, IDEO comes on the scene with design thinking. In 1998, Adobe launches Photoshop. That's how I cut my teeth on Photoshop. I remember, I had an old copy. It used to have these things called CDs. You ever heard of this? It's like a DVD CD-ROM. You put it into a computer. It was kind of crazy. There was even a disc. Anyway, so, and then in 1993, Don Norman coins the term user experience design, and he becomes the first official UX designer at Apple. In April 20, the World Wide Web releases to the public with a browser. In 1995, Microsoft launches Windows. In 2000, responsive web design comes along. In 2001, Adaptive Path creates the Interaction Design Foundation, IXD. 2001, also, first iPod comes on the scene. 2005, YouTube, UGC content. 2007, Steve Jobs invents the iPhone. Big moment. 2008, it's the birth of Siri. 2010, conversational UI and chatbots hit the scene. Mobile-first design, Sketch launches, for those of you that remember Sketch. Still great. InVision launches. Do you remember it? InVision, right? The prototyping tool. All of our UX and product designers here remember that. And in 2012, right after that, DeepMind develops deep neural networks, but nobody really knows what they're doing. It was too deep. 2020, remote collaboration tools start coming up, right? Miro, Mural, all these, right? With the dawn of COVID, OpenAI creates ChatGPT-3. 2015, Zeppelin. This is interesting. Before all this, though, just jumping back in time a little bit, like Doc Brown would do. 2015, Zeppelin, Figma, and Framer start the same year, right? And some say Framer may be the next Figma, right? Well, we'll see hopefully Adobe doesn't mess it up. 2021, right? The metaverse really starts taking off. Web3 is a thing. Somewhere in there, I didn't even put it on there, was Bitcoin. Do you remember that? I don't know what happened to that. 2021, DALL-E, right, comes on the scene. 2022, this is interesting, right? OpenAI, well, so Midjourney launches Stable Diffusion, and this is the kicker. November 30th, 2022. Remember that date. November 30th, 2022. OpenAI launches ChatGPT to the world. And it's not that AI became aware on that day, but the world became aware of AI. November 30th, 2022. That was a big change, step change. In 2023, right now, we're seeing the surge of Gen AI. And I'll talk about where we go after that. But I want to go back to 1955, what I skipped over. Something I found I thought was interesting. I think you might find it interesting as well. So at the very top, Henry Dreyfuss, he writes a book called Designing for People. It's the beginning of UX writing, right? How do you design for people? You can't get more user experience than that, right? At the same time, if you jump down, John McCarthy calls thinking machines artificial intelligence at Dartmouth College. They coined the term AI. So they're thinking about how to design for AI. Henry Dreyfuss is thinking about designing for UX. In the same year, right, 1955. This is where it gets pretty cool. Bell Labs, one of the biggest innovators for UX at the beginning, is working on the UX of the phone keypad, and MIT does the first keyboard to the computer. Disneyland opens. I just put that in there because I love Disneyland. And this was wild, right? Are you ready for this? Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, Eric Schmidt, the founder of Google, Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the internet and creator of HTTP and HTML, the creator of PNG, and the inventor of Pac-Man, all born in 1955. Google, Apple, Microsoft, same year, right? Kind of crazy. And then Einstein dies that same year. Lego system was invented, Velcro, the atomic clock, domesticated microwaves, and oddly, because I don't know what was going on with all this technology stuff, the first alien sighting documented in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I'm not saying aliens have anything to do with AI, but... And interestingly enough, my favorite fact of 1955 is that Doc Brown invents the flux capacitor and goes back to the future and time travels on November 5th, 1955. That's heavy, Marty! Isn't that wild? 1955. I don't know what the heck was going on in 1955, but seriously, something was really heavy in 1955, if you know the Back to the Future quote. And I thought that was interesting because from there on, 67 years later, wherever we are today, and maybe into 2025, so 70 years later, here's where we are, right? The dawn of all this stuff, what John McCarthy was talking about. But my question was, how do we combine Henry Dreyfuss all the way at the top and John McCarthy all the way at the bottom into what's happening today? Because I think the future of design may be experiences where on your phone, even if you have one, because there's new devices now are saying you don't need a screen, but let's say you have a screen, what if these devices were going to have real-time, personalized, updated UI? So you may create a design system through AI, and AI generates all your components and even all your code. And then when the user grabs a hold of that phone, or the human, what they see in one screen in that app, and you see the same screen, may change automatically, reconfiguring components and reconfiguring UI to people live. Not just a personalized experience, but a whole entire personalized user experience and a UI. So that real-time personalized UI could be something interesting. And what it will do, and what's going on right now, is a creation of new types of experiences. Experiences that aren't necessarily created by humans. We're using them for research now, right? We're using AI for research, we're using it for design, and ultimately, you may see something different. I was at the corner shop this morning, at the Retail Innovation Lab, like I mentioned earlier in London, and when I was there, they were showing me how, this AI bot, if you will, you could walk into a store and it would give you all the, based upon what your preferences and what you picked as your ingredients, it would give you all the meals that you could make, right? So in essence, it's spitting out all these recipes for you. And those recipes weren't designed by a human, or was written by a human, it was written by AI. And so now AI is kind of coming up with what I'm gonna eat. Does it know that I probably shouldn't have that much salt? Does it know that my mom's always mad at me because I have too much sugar, right? And it may or may not, but it's designing a recipe with ingredients that it thinks I should have because it thinks what humans should have, right? And that can go in any case possible. And what that ends up looking like is what I call the rise of AX. I don't think I've heard anybody say this yet, but this is how potentially artificial experience could reshape user experience. This is different. This is what I'm calling AX. And AX is not only potentially could change our world, but it could change human behavior within that world. And so, the more we leverage AI right now to help design and research experiences for humans, potentially the less human-led our experiences could ultimately be. So we're relying heavily as a design community now on AI. And what humans will experience aren't the human experiences designed by humans, but they may be the human experiences that are designed artificially. So let's go back to the beginning, and what is the definition of UX, right? This is kind of a combination of several definitions out there. UX is a human-centered approach to solving problems and creating useful, intuitive, engaging experiences for humans. I mean, you're at UX Live today. Would you agree that's pretty much the basic definition with some nuances and some buzzwords that can be changed here and there, right? And in there, there's these things, these terms that we hear all the time in UX. But if we compare that with AX, there's a slight difference. AX could be an artificially centered or an artificial-centered approach to solving problems and creating useful, intuitive, engaging experiences that AI thinks are best for humans. So, in other words, you may have one day we're calling it UX, and then the next day we may be seeing it as AX or AIX. You may go from user experience to artificial experience, or design thinking to artificial thinking. Design-led, right? We want all of our companies to be design-led to artificial-led or AI-led. Human-centric to artificial-centric. Our UX patterns are starting to become AX prompts or AI prompts. If you haven't already started a prompt or done a prompt, you need to do a prompt. But you don't want to let go of your UX patterns. Product designers, like this Product Design Week, may have to adapt to add prompt designer to their title. Because AI might do some of the design and augment our ability. A UX designer might ultimately be called a UX quality analyst. Why? Because they are spending their time analyzing the UX that the AI created. So the UX analyst is looking at how the AX designer may have created the user experience for the human. So I think we can have that augment us. But there's a part of this that we need to understand where we come from as designers and how to infuse our human abilities and our human touch and our imagination, creativity, and compassion into the whole ecosystem so that they don't always stay as artificial experiences. But if you think about AX, there's three types of AX. So just recently, AI Pin released a new, Humane released a new device called AI Pin. Raise your hand if you saw that. Anybody see that? It's a wearable device where, and this is a reference to them. There's an attribution to their image. This is their image, not mine. And from their website. And so I just want to give them credit for that. And they created a device that actually shines into your hand, the screen. And they showed how they could pick up a handful of almonds, and it would tell you that it has 18 grams of protein in those almonds. And then it would ask, well, how much protein have I had today? And it would tell them how much protein. And they can go about their day. And all sorts of kind of really cool things. Or interesting things. I don't know about cool. Interesting things. But what I thought was really, really interesting was that the co-founder, Bethany, she said something really interesting on one of the videos. She said that we don't have apps. We have AI experiences. She said that. No longer do they need apps. So AI, or AX, is also services through APIs and through AI that create new ways for us to interact with our world. So that's number one. Number two, artificial experiences can come through immersion into the virtual world, right? Or to the metaverse, right? So VR, MR, AR, all that stuff. So those are, artificial experiences just by nature, right? But then there's number 3, which is artificial experiences created by AI for humans to change human-led UX. That's big. And so we could go from conversational UI to conversational AI. Totally different world. And our UX goes to AX. So UX has changed the world up to this point. You saw that in the timeline. Could AX change it for the future? Or maybe AX could change it for the future. Let me say it again. UX changed the world up to this point. AX can change it for the future. So, to close out here, just the last few slides I just want to share with you. Is anyone familiar with the laws of UX? These are not mine. These belong to John Yablonsky. And he created these laws of UX. There's a site called lawsofux.com. You can go to that. And these are not all the laws of UX, but these are some. And you should memorize them, you should know them as a UX designer or a product designer or a designer. They're pretty interesting, or you may know them, and you may intuitively do them. So Jacob's Law, Jacob Nielsen, right? Jacob and Don Norman created Nielsen Norman. Don Norman being the first UX designer, remember, at Apple on the timeline. So Jacob Nielsen said, users spend most of their time on sites, and this means that users prefer your site to work the same way all the time, and other sites you already know. The law of proximity, the von Restorff effect. Von Restorff effect says where 2 or more similar objects are in the same screen or page or whatever, the one that's the one that's different is remembered the most. There's different types of laws. Fitts law, Hicks law. And so I started thinking, if UX may be changing to something that we're discussing today called AX, what would that look like? And so I asked ChatGPT, and these are its answer on what are the laws of AX. And I thought it was quite interesting what AI thought the laws of its own artificial experience could be. And just within the time I have, I can't go through everything, but there's ethical AI design, there's explainable AI, adaptive personalization, inclusive AI, removing bias, all that's important. But let me draw your attention to collaborative AI, down at the bottom right. The law of collaborative AI, according to ChatGPT, says that it would encourage collaboration between humans and AI by designing systems that augment human capabilities, promoting synergy rather than replacement, and striving for a harmonious partnership between users and AI. That is something that we need to hold on to, that harmonious partnership. And that is one of the laws that AI came up with for AX. And along there's lots of trust. There's lots of things about feedback and context. That adaptive learning, like I was talking about, that responsive or adaptive UI or adaptive UX that would change in your hand, is something that's going to be interesting because it says that designing AI systems that continuously learn and adapt based upon user feedback and changing context ensure that technology evolves to meet users' needs. AI, ChatGPT, is already thinking it's going to adapt to help meet users' needs and expectations, thinking it knows what your expectations and mine are. That AX. So the law is that it will work with us, it's saying, but then it will still create experiences for us that we will all follow in the future, or beginning to follow. So what do we do? What's the difference? How do we make sure this stays within the right boundaries? The difference is you. You make the difference. There's a quote, and I'm almost done here, that great UX designers, those that are deliberate, thoughtful, and thorough, are like superheroes. So make sure they're using their powers for good. Dan Brown. At the very beginning, I talked to you about designing in a way as a mission for good for the world. And that's still something very special and that we have. There's a few statements here and then one. We need to embrace our imperfections and uniqueness as humans. That's what makes us special. Our imperfections, we should lean into them. I've got a lot. Our uniqueness, all of you have that. All of you have gifts that the world needs to see. All of you have something powerful and special on the inside of you. And all of you can make that difference and use those gifts. And I think that's what makes you unique. I think that's what makes design still unique. We need to covet our most human connections and memories. Go to the plays, go to the arts, spend time with people and community, in ceremonies and rituals, whatever you may do. We also need to design for the most diverse. We at BP have started not only sustainable design, but we have a program that we started called inclusive design. And I think if we continue to stay on the edge of designing for the most diverse, we'll be ahead of the curve in design. AI is working to help design how to keep things conformed and uniformed. But humans are unique. None of us are uniformed. And we need to be able to have the ability to design for the ununiformed and the unique. We need to live in the moment and live for the moment in every moment. We need HX. We need human experience. We need more human experiences and human experience design. And honestly, we need your help to design the future. We need your help in our company and BP. It's a planetary mission that we're on, but it's also a mission for people. It's a mission to help people. We've seen how AI that we can leverage in a company that we invest in could take that AI that it got, advanced AI that it got from learning with NASA on their jet propulsion laboratories and applying it to blackouts in Western Africa, where 40 hours a month are without power in Western Africa. And we could take that AI and you can read this out there in the press. There's been press releases or whatever about this, around what can be called cognitive power plants. Using AI to actually make a difference where people need power the most, where they need energy the most. And so at the end of the day, they need you the most. We need you. And where we're going, like the quote says, we don't need roads, right? What we need to do is get back to designing the future. Thank you so much.